Pranks are designed for the mischievous to have a little bit of fun at the expense of another. Sometimes simple while other times complex, the results are usually meant to provide quick amusement and laughs for those involved. As pranks tend to include letting their intended target remain unaware of the unfolding trick, this means the consequences might not turn out as intended, and possibly be deadly. With that said, here's 5 cases where a simple prank had lethal conclusions. Adrienne Broadway was a 15-year-old girl from Little Rock, Arkansas. She was a popular student at school who was a big fan of the Hunger Games movies and book series. She was also a member of her school's cheerleading squad. On February 14, 2014, 50-year-old Willie Noble heard a group of kids outside of his home and went outside to find his son's car covered in toilet paper and leaves. The suspects were long gone. Furious, he went back inside of his home to get his handgun from his bedroom. He then told his wife, whoever it is, they'll try to come back. The pranksters were Adrienne Broadway and her 6 friends, all driving in a white Hyundai Sonata, and the prank was a retaliation for a similar prank done by Willie Noble's son on Broadway last Halloween. The group was planning to return to hit another car into Noble's driveway to cement their victory. Watching from a bathroom window in his home, Willie's assumption proved to be correct. 45 minutes after the previous attack, the white Hyundai Sonata returned. This time, the group of teens had eggs, mayonnaise, in addition to toilet paper. Seeing this, Willie Noble sprinted downstairs and yelled at the teens while brandishing his handgun at them. Noble fired wildly at their vehicle, emptying his clip as the teens panicked, then drove away. 18-year-old driver of the vehicle, Deshaun Nelson, suffered minor cuts from the driver's side window of his car being blown out by the bullets being fired at him. His passenger wasn't so lucky. Adrienne Broadway was fatally shot in the head. After Adrienne was pronounced dead at Arkansas Children's Hospital, Willie Noble was quickly arrested by police and charged with first-degree murder, 1 count of a terroristic attack, and 5 counts of aggravated assault for firing at the vehicle of teens. Willie Noble was sentenced to 30 years in prison. He will not be eligible for parole until 2038. 44-year-old Randall Lee Tenley lived in Montana and was an avid outdoorsman, regularly hunting, fishing, and camping with his friends. He also enjoyed pulling harmless pranks on his friends, who nicknamed him the Tater. After a few local reports of a Bigfoot sighting along Highway 93, Tenley got the idea of getting a friend to film him dressed in a military ghillie suit and prank drivers on the highway into believing they had an encounter with the mythical creature. On Sunday evening of August 26, 2012, Tenley with a friend hidden in foliage filmed a prank and began to wander out in the road as cars passed by in an attempt to scare him. His hopes of getting funny reactions on camera, however, didn't go to plan. Tenley was, instead, accidentally struck by a car being driven by a 15-year-old girl at high speed, who couldn't see Tenley properly due to his ghillie suit camouflaging him too well against the wilderness background of the highway. Tenley's body was struck again by a 17-year-old female driver almost immediately after as he attempted to crawl out of the road. Randy died quickly from his wounds, and a toxicology report determined that he did not have any alcohol or drugs in his system at the time. Montana Highway Patrolman Butch Husseby commented on the accident saying, "This is one of the dumbest things I've seen, really." Neither drivers were charged with any wrongdoing. Derek Greenlee and Seth Stonerock were 2 recently graduated high school students of Logan Elm High School, located in Circleville, Ohio. Logan Elm High had a reputation for being well maintained, with students getting higher than average grades and participation in music and sports. Greenlee held the status of being the best golfer from a high school in his county, and Stonerock was the starting center of a basketball team. Both boys did well in school and had no criminal records to speak of. Both boys, however, enjoyed pranking others and then posting the results on their Facebook page. One of their latest involved covering a stop sign located at Huber Road with plastic wrap repeatedly. To make it more difficult to remove, petroleum jelly was added all over the plastic wrapping. The boys then carelessly left the stop sign covered as is, taking a picture of it to brag about on their Facebook page. Both boys wrapped such a large amount of plastic wrap on the stop sign that it was hard to read anymore, something that would prove to be deadly. On August 17, 2011, 81-year-old Janine Shia drove past the stop sign completely unable to see it. Her vehicle was then immediately struck at high speed by another car from the right. Janine was heavily injured while her sister in the passenger seat, 85-year-old Mary Spangler, died on impact. After 2 weeks, Janine died of injuries related from the crash. It didn't take long for police to learn who the culprits were thanks to the Facebook posts made by the two boys with the provided evidence. Both boys were arrested and charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 1 count of tampering with a traffic device, and 2 counts of reckless homicide. Both boys stood to face up to 4 years in prison. However, Judge P. Randall Neese took notice when the boys' lawyer argued of their previously clean criminal record, and the boys also argued it was never their intention to kill anyone. Charges were later dropped against Greenlee when Facebook posts showed that he attempted to talk Stone Rock out of the prank. Stone Rock wasn't as fortunate. He served 8 months out of a 4-year sentence but was released early on good behavior. Neese instead ordered Stone Rock to serve 3 years of probation, 40 hours of community service, and avoid all contact with Derek Greenlee. Mark Andrew Drews was a popular high school sophomore at Pope John Paul II High School. At 6 feet 2 inches tall and 210 pounds, the 16-year-old Drews had a reputation for being one of the biggest students at school and competed on the local football team. After celebrating his 16th birthday at a party on Friday night, Drews was driving around Boca Raton, Florida as midnight struck on October 25, 2003 with his friend Anatoly Martinico. A suggestion was brought up of playing Ding Dong Ditch, a prank game that involves running up to a residence, knocking or ringing the doorbell, and then quickly leaving, usually leaving the homeowner minorly annoyed at best. The boys' first target was the home of Jay Levin, a 40-year-old man living in the upscale Boca del Mar neighborhood. Stopping the car, they approached his home around 12:30 a.m. and knocked on his door loud, then ran to hide in nearby bushes. Jay Levin checked outside of his house from his window and saw, in his words, 2 shadowy figures in the bushes. Unsure and believing it possibly to be burglars casing his home, Levin picked up his loaded handgun from his nightstand. Levin opened up his front door and could still see 2 figures in the bushes about a dozen yards from his patio. Raising his gun at the bushes, the boys fled in a state of panic as he fired 1 round, striking Drews in the back. Despite being shot, Drews continued to run while his friend began banging on doors, screaming for help. Approximately 100 yards from the shooting, Drews collapsed on a front lawn as he began to bleed out while Martinico held on to him. Drews was pronounced dead at Delray Medical Center, while his friend Martinico was held by police for several hours as they questioned him, not knowing at first that he was not the one responsible for the shooting. Jay Levin was then detained by detectives and questioned about the shooting. Jay, who had a legal concealed weapon permit, was eventually charged with manslaughter in 2004, where he served 52 weeks in a county jail. Drew's family also filed a wrongful death suit against Levin, successfully winning $750,000. Over the years, various former classmates of Drew's and neighborhood vigilantes have attempted to extract their own form of justice for the slain teenager. Jay Levin's residence has been repeatedly vandalized since Drew's untimely death. Front windows being broken by rocks and his mailbox being smashed by a baseball bat is just some of the destructive acts of vengeance reported. Brad Lee Davis was a 35-year-old former Marine that lived in Macleod, Oklahoma. Davis was living in a trailer park next door to his stepfather, Denver St. Clair, and his mother, who also lived in a nearby trailer in the same area. Davis never got along with his 58-year-old stepfather, who often bullied Davis growing up and mistreated Davis's mother. Despite his stepfather's behavior, Davis attempted to get along with Denver as he was renting a home from him. Davis made a living as a woodcutter and had previously been a maintenance worker at a casino, where his co-workers described him as reliable and a good man. On December 21, 2013, Denver St. Clair invited Brad Davis to his home to have some beers, while Davis's mother was recovering at a nearby hospital from hip surgery. With both men drunk, Denver began to slowly get aggressive towards Brad, repeatedly insulting him and then insulting his mother, describing her as worthless. That was the last straw for Brad Lee Davis as it erupted into a fistfight between the two men. In the middle of the fight, Brad grabbed the back of his stepfather's underpants and pulled it over his head, which made the laster grip onto his neck, giving him what is known as an atomic wedgie. An atomic wedgie is a humiliating prank that's been made famous by school bullies in Hollywood films. It's also one of the signature moves of Jim Carrey's The Mask. Denver tripped over himself onto the floor and began to cough and choke as Brad looked on, believing his stepfather to be overreacting. Within a few minutes, Denver St. Clair was dead from strangulation of his own underwear. At first, Davis took pictures of St. Clair with his smartphone in an attempt to humiliate him, as he truly did not believe him to be dead but rather passed out from being drunk. It did not take him long, however, to realize that St. Clair had stopped breathing. Brad called 911, but Denver was long since deceased. The former Marine was charged with first-degree murder, but a plea deal was reached for a guilty plea for a first-degree manslaughter charge instead. The harsh sentence was doled out after investigations shown that Brad had tampered with crime scene evidence after the death to make it appear to be in self-defense. The cell phone pictures taken by Brad did nothing to help his cause either. Judge John G. Canavan Jr. sentenced Bradley Davis to 30 years in prison. He stated, "This was not mutual combat, this was not self-defense, it was pure aggression." Due to Brad's lack of a criminal record, the judge expressed consideration that he may review the case again in a year if Brad manages to stay out of trouble. While pranks will continue to be done on unsuspecting strangers and friends, keep in mind that some consequences may be far removed from what you may expect to happen. More so if you don't truly know the person that you're messing with. While it's not possible to know every single outcome that could happen when engaging in a little bit of trickery, a little bit of common sense could go a long ways. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time on Horrors, Freaks, and Creeps.